base level of happiness and contentment, security comes from relationships in your family. You get that nailed, everything builds upon that point.
Yeah.
If you're not happy with your family and your relationship at home, you don't care about anything.
And honestly, that's so true as well. I mean, I had Casey when I was 19. We just kind of ended up with this family, but it's like looking at it now, I see that it's the foundation of everything. As Casey's getting older, she's like, please stop having kids because it's the age gap is crazy. Do you know what I mean? She's like, well, she's just like, this is bizarre. And I'm like, yeah, okay, maybe a little bit. Do you think that they actively want to push entrepreneurs out?
Absolutely. I'm putting a flag in the ground. I'm saying we're staying and we will fight until we can elect a better parliament and a better government. When you have a weak family unit, you have a weak country.
Yeah.
And I said this over and over again. If someone attacks you as a man and you're on your own, you kind of grin and bear it. You might fight back. But if someone attacks your family, fuck me.
Yeah.
It's like, for example, if I offered you something, a medication, and I just roughly explained it'll probably help you, you'd probably just take it. But if I'm like, oh, I'll give that to your youngest daughter, you'd go, hang on a minute, where'd it come from? Who gave it to you? This, that, and the other. Like, you check everything. Now, if you have a whole populace that has really strong family ties and has that same opinion of protecting their family, external things that start to happen in the country that they don't like, they suddenly start to fight a hell of a lot more for. Because when it's you, you're like, oh, fuck it, I'll deal with it, it's fine.
Yeah.
And I know that if we can bring that back, because that's why it's been eroded, because they want people to just be like dismissive. If people can actually have something to fight for, the country, their family, love for the prideful of their history and their ancestors, we can make it all great again because we won't tolerate anything less than exceptional.
Yeah.
But if there's nothing to fight for, then what the hell are we doing here? Everyone, of course people are going to leave.
Yeah. And that's the thing. So many people are just leaving. That is just kind of their thing. And I do get it though. Like there is part where it's like you do just get fed up and you think it's just easier to leave. But the thing is like it always has been such a great country that it's worth, you know what I mean? It's worth
we're the British Empire. We were one of the most powerful countries on the planet, and this tiny little island of like incredible people that pioneered like the expansion of the world. And we're like just willing to just walk away from it. And that's what upsets me. And tell me, when in life has anything worth having come easy?
Yeah, never. You got to work for it.
And the thing is, okay, what's not to say that you're going to move to another country, then that's not going to happen again? What are you going to do? Keep moving countries until you find somewhere that doesn't have that?
Yeah.
I mean,
and the thing is, like, I mean, it's just, the world is a weird place at the moment. Don't you think? Like, even like you think about America, right? Like America has obviously, like America's not got the history like England's got, but it's always been a great country. Mm-hmm. It is a mess at the moment. Like it is crazy, right?
Everywhere's a mess at the moment.
Like it just, so it's like.
Why do you think that is though?
Do you know what? It's like, why do I think? I think there's like a mentality in America. What I've noticed, and I don't want to offend Americans, but what I've noticed in America is like they care so deeply about, and they don't question things. They just they put their flag and say, this is who I am, this is what I believe, and I won't question it, and I won't try and learn, and I won't try and grow. I'm not talking about every American, but I'm talking about the fact that your political beliefs and who you vote for will determine that you will not only not speak to that friend anymore, but you will adamantly like hate that person. Is just wild to me. That blows my mind. That blows my mind how people can be like, their whole personality becomes, I'm a Trump supporter, or their whole personality becomes, I'm a liberal, or like, not just like, this is one part that makes up my belief system, or like Christianity, like, and I will not deviate from anything that I was taught as a kid, or like racism. Like the racism in America is just, it's still there. Like it's still, because it's like, I think they can't question things, even if they're like.
It's like a lot of Mormonism out there, isn't it? And we were watching something last night, and they're like within this church. And if you leave that church, like everyone shuns you, and there's no life outside this church. I think there's certain groups in America, isn't there, where they're very set by their ways.
Like belief systems that are like, they just, even like their thing of like, our right to bear arms is so, it's like, it's almost like that is what makes us American. And it's like, well, you know, we were people and human beings before we had guns. And like, you know, like that's the stuff that blows my mind, of like not being able to like look at it and say, what are these guns doing? Do you know what I mean? And they're like, but that's my right as American. That's it. Like that is who I am.
I'm not gonna lie, I'd love a gun in my house.
Yeah.
for certain reasons, I would.
But the only problem is then it's like, and then every other person has a gun.
Yeah.
It's like you're way more likely to, like, how likely are you to get into trouble?
There's loads
like,
of cases in America where the kids get hold of the guns, don't they,
Yeah.
by accident?
They shoot their siblings by accident, like 6 years old.
Yeah.
This kid shot dead their sibling. It's like, it's mental. But yeah, it's so yeah, whatever we think's going on here, it's like, well, you look over there and you think, all right, we're still all right. We're still got
a bit crazy, but there's more crazy.
We still got a lot to fix.
Well, that's my point, right? So the general consensus of people is, if the grass is greener over there, I'm going to move. Yeah. Whereas I've always been an advocate of, if it doesn't exist, I'm going to build it. I'm not going to try and seek out where it is.
Yeah.
And for me, why can't we be the people that have grass that might not be particularly green, but water it, nourish it, nurture it, and actually then make it what you need it to be, rather than constantly trying to search for something that may or may not exist. And that's,
I think as well, like, because obviously as business owners, it's difficult when sometimes you feel like you're watering grass and building your empire on something that is constantly being changed by the people that actually have the power. Do you know what I mean? It's like they constantly.
Yeah. So then you have to track back. How do the people get into power?
Yeah.
We have a democracy. There's a democratic system of voting, right? So if people have got into power that aren't good for the people, generally speaking, that's because the people are, one, uneducated on the people that are in power, and secondly, maybe just given up. And as a result, we then have this perpetual snowball of lack of respect, people leaving the country, people aren't fighting for it, they're looking for the greener grass, rather than saying, let's actually start to appreciate the brown grass we've got. Let's look at how it used to be, what we can bring back. And actually, if we are clever about this, we start to water it, we take pride in the things that we're standing on, we would then not accept those people to be in power because we care a lot more about it. But with opportunity as well, globalization has been fantastic for economic growth, for, you know, the quality of living increases, but with opportunity does breed disappointment, sometimes depression, unhappiness, because all of a sudden, if you've got other options, you're then questioning whether the one you've got is right. And I always track this back to, you remember when we were younger, you had a TV, you might have 4 channels and maybe a 5th. And then whatever TV channel was on, you would watch that movie and you'd be happy for that movie. Or on Christmas Day, we used to have a catalogue that would tell us what films were on, and we'd all sit as a family and watch it because there was no choice, and we would have a tremendous amount of enjoyment out of it. Now, I'm not saying opportunity is a bad thing. It's just,
the fact that I spend about an hour trying to find something to watch on Netflix.
This is what I'm saying.
Fall asleep within 5 minutes of it starting.
Let me ask you this. Would you say you are now any happier, now you've got all the choice in the world, than when you were younger and you only had one channel?
No.
Or would you say you're actually unhappier?
I actually feel like unhappy. I feel like it was easier to find satisfaction when there was less choice.
Okay, so let's track that back to the country you live in. If we didn't have the choice of moving to Dubai, to other countries and that, and you were living in a place you weren't happy, would you be more or less inclined to actually try and fix that place?
Yeah, I definitely see your point on that. I think the thing is like, why do you think, why is it that Britain seems to be not for entrepreneurs, like not for business owners? Like, where do you think that mentality is coming from? Like, why do you think that they keep moving the goalposts? They keep making it more difficult and more, like, less incentive to.
That's the easy one.
To do that.
What do entrepreneurs do?
They solve problems.
And what do they build?
Businesses.
Exactly. And when you have an elite group of people that want complete control, they want people that conform to a system that is identifiable, that is pattern-based, and is completely trackable. Problem with entrepreneurs is they're almost free agents. And yes, they're very good for the economy, but they don't conform to a very well-oiled cog that goes exactly as they want it to. So if you are someone that has the power that you want, has a country that's running as it needs to be, the less variables that can change within that, the easier it is to keep an eye on and track and control. Entrepreneurs we're wild animals. And like me, I'm like, well, if it doesn't exist, I'll build it. They don't want that type of thinking.
So do you think that they actively want to push entrepreneurs out?
Absolutely.
That they are, when they see entrepreneurs and business people leaving for Dubai, they aren't thinking, we've maybe messed up here. That's
what you have to remember
plan.
about the UK is, for all the crap that gets spoken about it, we have some of the most intelligent, highly motivated politicians and economics staff running the country and making economic decisions. The guys that are running the country and making these decisions aren't stupid. Everything is thought through, everything is calculated, and everything is for a reason. It doesn't just happen. People like thinking that they're morons, because that way you don't feel threatened by them.
Yeah.
But these guys are not stupid.
Yeah.
Right? Now, what's easier to control? A load of business people that are doing their own accounts, creating businesses out at a whim, employing people left, right, and centre, versus some very government-controlled, huge corporates that have massive hierarchical pay structures, and everyone's paying their PAYE, everyone's in employment contracts, everything's tracked, managed.
So what would that do for the economy? Or like what countries
It's
are
moving to a more
following
communistic state.
like China.
China, Russia, as it used to be. So it's moving to more of a
So
socialistic...
although on a smaller picture, we all think, oh well, like it would be terrible, like economically for all the business owners and entrepreneurs to kind of like leave and set up shop elsewhere. If you look at China as the economy there,
It's fantastic
it's
for the government,
incredible.
mate.
So in terms of like,
This is what you have
this is
to...
actually an eye opener for me, because I actually thought that I was like, well, like if all the entrepreneurs and business people leave, like the economy is going to be screwed.
Absolutely not.
But actually,
So what you have to remember
that model in China.
a country is a business.
Yeah.
And countries trade their capital and resources with other countries. So they're independently their own business. Then you have the constructs below it of the sub-businesses that make up that main GDP in the main country, right? And then they obviously tax people. Now, absolutely not. You can have a very prosperous, very powerful communistic government. And in fact, sometimes that works quite well, depending on how you build it. However, if you think for a minute then that the government give a shit about their people, life in China is cheap, right? Everything is disposable, and they run the country through fear.
Yeah.
Just because economy is good and their balance sheet is high and they don't have a lot of national debt doesn't mean that the people are happy and being treated well.
No. I'm not
That's
saying
the
that for 1
difference.
second.
So
I
yes,
was just
you can
looking
have a very good
Yeah.
economy, but it doesn't necessarily mean you've got a very good place to live.
So if you're saying that if you're saying like obviously that there's these people that run the country, right? Mm-hmm. And they're very intelligent, and this is what they want. Then what can people actually do at a grassroots level to influence that? You know, you say about staying here, mm-hmm. watering the grass, building, rebuilding, fighting for it. Like, if these people exist at the top, what can people then do?
One, stop running away, stay here. Secondly, like I said, start becoming aware of how good this country is and start trying to fix it. So rather than setting your business up shop elsewhere, yes, stay here and fight and try to keep business here. Yes, I have business in Bulgaria, but I still leave the majority of my business here. My wife has a business here, we have business here, we have properties here. Yeah. Yes, we pay an extortionate amount of tax on those and we employ people here. But through doing that, I'm putting a flag in the ground. I'm saying, we're staying and we will fight until we can elect a better parliament and a better government. And like I said, if we start to feel pride in who we are, we will start to respect the country more. Then what will happen is, we don't have an immigration problem, because everyone says this as well. Like, I want to get this clear right now. When I talk about cultural diversity and dilution, I'm not saying don't bring in other cultures, because other countries have tons of immigration and they don't have a cultural problem.
Yeah.
The difference is when you have a country where everyone in that country has lost respect for its own place, why on earth would someone else respect that country? It's like walking into your home, right? I'm guessing it's clean, smells good, there's been pride. You love that house.
Because
It's
of
a
my
family
wife,
home.
not so much.
Point
My wife
being
keeps
is,
it nice.
if I walk into the house and it's well respected, I'm going to take my shoes off.
Yeah.
But if I walk in there and you clearly don't give a shit, you're covered in mud, the kids are running around, the space is a state, I'm not going to worry about taking my shoes off and I'm not going to respect it. Do you think if I dropped the coffee on the floor, I'd be too bothered?
Yeah.
Absolutely not. So when that happens, you then have less tolerance for things you don't like in the country. And then what happens is that you talked about questioning before. When you start to respect that thing and you have a care of it, when someone goes, oh, we're doing this country, you go, hang on a minute. No, we're not. I've worked really bloody hard and I care about this place. And I'm not just going to run away from it.
Yeah.
And then people start to actually question and fight back. But we fight with democracy. We don't need to go on with pitchforks and everything else. We say, well, we're not going to vote you in the next election. We'll actually pick the guy that's more in line with what we like and our morals and our ethics. That's how it changes from the ground up.
Do you think there are people in government who actually fit that?
There are, but no one's looking for them. And also we don't care.
Yeah.
And they will start to come out of necessity and need and demand when we start to actually ask where there are these people.
Yeah. That's a good point.
And this is when radicalization happens, because what will happen is you'll get to an extreme point and then people will vote for an extreme person and then wonder why you get a Hitler, why you get a Stalin. Well, Stalin's a little bit different. He didn't really get voted in, but
yeah,
that's when that happens. And then it goes too far the other way.
Well, also
they're left for too long and then out of desperation, you take an absolute nut job.
But also that's when you just start to see like huge division. Because like you've seen it in the US. Like
that's exactly what's happening now. So you take a Trump. I actually favour him on a lot of things, but he's way too extreme. Yeah. Had he not got it to a point where people were so desperate for change, you would have had.
He wouldn't have been.
You would have had someone in the middle ground that would have been a little bit more of a pacifier between both sides, and then you wouldn't have the people fighting each other in the street, and that solves that problem.
It's crazy when you actually look at like what they actually have to choose from,
and that's the problem.
Like one extreme to the other.
But that is why.
It's crazy.
And that's why. And then you've got like arseholes like Tate that are starting the bruv party. I mean, the fact that it's even entertained, and from what I've seen online and what my team have sent me, people are actually taking it somewhat seriously. Now, we're at that extreme point again. If you got to a point where a country would entertain someone that starts a party called bruv, you know we've lost it. We've gone too far and we're desperate, right? Because you've got some absolute nutter trying to almost jokingly, through satire, make a government party, and people are actually considering it.
Well, I don't feel like it feels that dissimilar to when Trump first entered the thing. It was a bit like, oh yeah, like good luck. You've obviously just bored and want to spend your money on something, but then it's like he's going to be in the White House again.
He definitely did it as a joke.
It's like when Brexit happened. None of us thought that was actually properly going to happen.
Yeah. And the point being is, if you cared more about the country, the voters that thought that, because we all thought it wasn't going to happen, half the people didn't turn up and vote. Now, if you really cared, you would have been like, I'm making sure this doesn't happen. I will get up at whatever time in the morning and I'll take a day off of work to go and vote today.
Yeah.
That's the problem. It's very easily solvable. We just got to become aware of just how good this country is. And I think the great thing about you, Joel, is you promote your family, which is at its core, for me, the base thing. Your family, your wife, your kids.
Yeah.
Especially as a man, that needs to be the most important thing to you. You need to care
and nourish those. It's the foundation, isn't it?
Because then from that point, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, he talks about this. The base level of happiness and contentment and security comes from relationships in your family. You get that nailed, everything builds upon that point.
Yeah. If
you're not happy with your family and your relationship at home, you don't care about anything else in life.
And honestly, that's so true as well. And I think it wasn't even like intentionally, because obviously, I mean, I had Casey when I was 19. We just kind of, ended up with this family. But it's like looking at it now, I see that it's the foundation of everything.
How did that change you as a person, having a kid at that age?
It wasn't overnight, I'll be honest. I think the thing is, like, as I've got older, my friends have started to have like kids, like only within the last sort of like 5-6 years. It's like some of them really believe that like overnight they would wake up a new person, and I was like, something changes, but not everything changes. And
especially for a guy, I don't think it's like that, is it?
I think with women as well, like you have like the baby is living inside of you, and even the fact that you like women, you know, they nest. It's like it's Mother Nature. With a guy, it's like once the baby arrives, then our transformation slowly starts from there. But I think it gives you a purpose, and it gives you something to care about, and it gives you a foundation. I think this is kind of like what you're saying, like if you're just a single guy out there and you don't have a wife, you don't have kids, like you don't have that stability, and you don't, you know, you can get yourself into all sorts of crazy things.
So
Do you know
let me
what I mean?
ask you this then. There's been some, I'm not even going to name names, but there's been some crazy, almost socially acceptable movement now with the OnlyFans world, with a lot of young girls, Casey's age and younger, starting to make a tremendous amount of notoriety and money and popularizing like the exploitation and usage of their body and almost glorifying, actually no, completely glorifying
Completely
it.
glorifying it, yeah.
How do you feel about that?
I feel disappointed. As much as I feel like, as much as it's disgusting, it's really disappointing. As a father of 5 girls, the problem is attention is currency. Do you know what I mean? And before, if you wanted to become super successful and make substantial money, you had to build a business, right? Well, we all have the ability for like sensationalism. Any one of us in this room could go viral tomorrow by doing something that's completely against our morals or anything like that. And that is the temptation. So when you think about it, if you look at like these young people and they're surrounded on Instagram, TikTok, social media by success, cars, this and that. Well, before, your way to that stuff was hard work and building a business and all the foundations that come with that. Now, there is that temptation of, I can access that through attention. What do I have at my disposal? Well, young women have their bodies, and men are willing to pay on OnlyFans to see that. So you can see the temptation is there. They have, the assets are there, and they're just, all they need to do is go on and do these crazy things. I don't know, like, I know that those women are making a lot of money. I know that they will be influencing some young women, but the young women in my life, like my teenage daughters, are disgusted by it.
Do you know what that is?
And completely turned off by that.
Do you know why that is? Because you and your partner, Sarah, created a home life that was stable. You showed your daughters what a true family is and what it means and the value that then provides. And then what you did is you didn't leave a gaping hole in them by actually giving them love, support and care. Because insecurity is built through need and necessity, normally generated from the fact that their parents didn't give them something they required. And people ask me all the time, Elliot, how can I stop the exposure to my daughter and my sons to all of this crap on social media? I said, you can't. I said, what you can do is you make them feel secure, safe, and that's your best defense. Because in the face of anything that is abnormal and something that they understand to be bad because you've shown them a better way, you will help protect them against that. And that's the only thing you can do. You don't need to shelter them. In fact, that'll be the opposite thing of what they need to do. You need to show them the right way of doing things. And in doing that, they will figure it out for themselves. And this is what we can do exponentially through the country as well. We show people the right way of doing it, be a good leader and a good example. Don't run away. If you're someone that's seeing this and you have power and you have influence, which you don't even need to be big for that. You can be an influence by saying, this is a better way to live. This is how I can do things, and show people how it can be done. There's a better way of playing the game. And then show love, care and support. And then when a psychopath comes in and does something crazy, I don't know how many men it was in 24 hours, people go, this is absolutely lunacy. And I'm not going to disrespect myself. And, you know, based on what I have learned to be good from my parents and the role model that they set ahead of me and the fact that I feel very secure in myself, it's not worth it for me.
Yeah.
And actually, if anything, hopefully then fight back against it.
So when I was growing up, I feel like I had a really good family. Like my mum and dad, they've been together, was it 40 years the other day? They've been together a long time. And if I was in this world now and I had no money and I thought that was a quick fix, it was more the disappointment I would bring to my family. I would never want to do that to my family. So even if I disrespected myself and had no respect for myself and I was going down that path, I would never want to bring that disappointment to my family, my dad. I would die.
That's a good point. And I think that's also going back to like what we're saying is like when we have family, we all are held to a higher standard. And not, do you know what? As much as like I would say me and Sarah would hold our kids to a higher standard, they hold us to a higher standard. Now they're that much older. It's like you bring them up in that way. It's like they hold us to a high standard as well now, which is just like an amazing thing to see. And that's what happens when you have
I think your girls have also seen how hard you and Sarah have worked. I know obviously it's been built on social media, but people take this for granted. Social media is hard work. I told you earlier, I've met Casey and she's a grafter. Like, she's a good girl. And I think people must watch her channel and be like, oh, it's easy, like her life. So it's not. Like, what Casey does is hard work.
The thing is, and I've been slated for saying this before in the Daily Mail when I was on this morning, of saying it, like, because they asked me, is it, you know, do you work hard like that, or do you just turn the camera on and then film it and then that's it? I was like, no, I've never worked harder in my life. And it's like, but I think the flip side of that is like, yes, we're working hard, but the rewards are incredible. The life that we have built is amazing. And there's other people in the world who work very hard, but aren't. The end result is they're just scraping by.
Can I go back to the point you just made a minute ago? The best thing that kids teach you is that you think your parents taught you a lot, but the irony is it's your kids that teach you more than anything.
Yeah.
They teach you more than you teach them. Because you develop as a person, you become accountable, you then question everything that you do, who you are, what you do, how you say, because you're that person's role model.
Yeah.
But your kids teach you more than you teach them. And they'll pass that on to their kids. And hopefully if you've done the right thing by them, that message will be good and that will perpetuate and it'll improve. It's an incredible thing.
It is. And they definitely do. They definitely do hold me to a higher standard, the two teenagers. And it's amazing to see, like, they're very strong, independent women. They really are. And it's like, yeah, it's interesting as they get that bit older and then they have their opinions of like, actually, I don't think that's right.
So has Casey spoken to you at all about this movement, this female? Because I'm guessing she's obviously very well known and she's in those circles. And no doubt she's
hopefully not those circles.
No, she's in the circles, but she'll be swimming with the same like people that getting this similar attention from a different means.
Yeah.
What's her thoughts on how she's distancing herself from it?
Well, yeah, I mean, the thing is like, obviously it's a conversation that comes up in the house, but like, it's not even a conversation as like, is this what it's just like, this is just disgusting. This is terrible. Do you know what I mean? It's not even a case of like what does everyone think about this? Because it's just like, what are these girls doing? And it's unfortunate because the girls that, like we're saying, like we've been fortunate enough to have that family upbringing, to be able to, I've been fortunate enough to be able to give that to Casey and Grace for them to not feel like that. But the people that are going to suffer from this aren't people like my kids. It's people who have been brought up without that love, without that reassurance, with those insecurities. So like the damage that's going to be done across all of these girls who go, that's my way out of this situation. That's how I can achieve the things that I want to achieve. And whether they achieve them or they just completely wreck their whole life on the way to trying to achieve them, you can't take that stuff back. That stuff's on the internet forever. And eventually that is going to catch up with you in some way or another. I think there's just no way it's not.
My prediction is everyone that's on OnlyFans that then obviously have a track record of what they've done, where they've done it, they will start to be investigated when they start traveling countries. They'll have background checks. They'll be on a list because people and governments won't want that in their country. I know Australia is already starting to pull people up on it. If people are traveling to that country and they're from another country and they know they make their money from OnlyFans, you're not coming in.
Yeah.
It will be a stigma that they will carry with them for the rest of their life.
Yeah.
It's like a black mark on their record.
Like when they have kids and stuff, like it's just like, I mean, I just don't think people, I think at that young age, don't think people have necessarily the maturity or the capacity to think long term. If you've only been on the planet 18 years, you don't know what
Well,
the implications are. Like when I was 18, I made decisions that were really stupid, and the implications could have been, you know, whatever. But like you just live for the minute.
Yeah.
But the problem is the stuff that they're doing, it's the difference of like when I was young and I made stupid decisions, they weren't on the internet to follow me around forever. And it's like that stuff is...
Yeah, I'm not going to make excuses for them because there is absolutely nothing that condones that behaviour. However, what we are experiencing is a brand new thing.
Yeah.
So there is no... It's like a new drug.
Yeah.
You take something to fix an ailment, but you don't know what it's going to do to you 30, 40 years from now.
Yeah.
Because there is... If, for example, people could see 30 or 40 years now from the people that are doing this now, them in jail, they're like got messed up from it. They've got like they've got high suicide rates. They're like miserable all alone. There is a benchmark of what's likely to happen when extrapolated out. But because there is no negative consequence yet, because it's so new, people aren't able to see the effects of it.
Yeah.
And like I said, that's the worry. And I don't want to have to wait until all the shit that kicks in from that.
They're probably comparing themselves, I reckon, to like Kim Kardashian. She had a sex tape, didn't she? And she's now famous from it, and no one batters an eyelid.
Where do you think it all started from? It was the social acceptance of these things because we romanticized over it almost.
Yeah.
It became cool and vogue.
Well, unfortunately, it really worked out well for
It
Kim
did.
Kardashian.
This is the problem.
And it's not unfortunately as in like against hers and I wish it hadn't worked out. It's unfortunate that the thing that you can kind of like pinpoint where her career exploded, she may have done it without it. She may have done it. It might have just been one catalyst, but unfortunately it is there. And it is like, oh, okay, well, she was able to turn it around and she isn't like known for that anymore. Yeah. And you know her actually as a pretty incredible
Well, we've watched their things. They're businesswomen. They're grown.
But once again, if we had more people promoting family units and making more families secure, more people would turn around and go, that's fucking disgusting. Actually, we don't want to buy into that.
Yeah.
We're not going to be consuming that information. We're not going to be signing up for OnlyFans and fueling it. You wouldn't have had the problem in the first place. It's because there's so many people with that issue. And also there's the other side of this as well, is there's so many men that buy into it and think it's okay.
Yeah.
Like so many young men now that have got role models that are telling them that having 10, 15, 30 girlfriends is what you're entitled to. That's completely normal.
Yeah.
And as a result, they will happily buy into a girl that's on Instagram selling her OnlyFans and then continue to promote this cycle. And then actually the person's getting a payout. The way the market works, if there's no demand for something, there's no price.
Yeah.
There's the price is zero and therefore there won't be a supply.
Yeah.
Period. But the fact that we have bad role models across the board, and I hold a lot of the males to blame for this. If you weren't buying that shit, you wouldn't have the problem. If men thought it was disgusting, they wouldn't condone it. They wouldn't be turning up on the day to do that shit. It's fucking vile.
Yeah.
They should all be shot. Genuinely. Everybody that turned up on that day should just be lined up and shot.
It is actually, do you know what? Is like, I mean...
I was getting a bit angry now because honestly, like it's...
Just to break it down, right? Bonnie Blue and I can't, who's the other one, Lily Phillips, that do this, right? As disgusting as it is, their purpose is to make money. What are these guys doing there? They're there. 1,000 men in 24 hours. What does that equate to per minute? You're not even getting a solid minute with it. What are you doing there? Are you that desperate that you can't even like? That blows my mind even more because at least I know why she's there. I'm like, what are you guys doing here? That is just...
And this is the problem.
That's crazy.
I think the men are more accountable for this than the women. Yeah. Because if there was no demand for it, the women aren't demanding this.
No.
I personally didn't think that many guys were going to turn up, if I'm honest.
Exactly.
There's no way on God's way now.
Exactly.
It's just crazy.
It's absolutely harrowing. It's vile.
Yeah.
Like
the thing is as well is like, obviously you mentioned Tate earlier, but like with Tate and his message and stuff, like being a father of 5 girls, it's just like, it scares me what the message that he gives to young guys of like how they feel entitled to women. That I think is just like, it is as bad as what, you know, Bonnie Blue and Lily Phillips and those people are doing, like to inspire a generation of young men to have this mentality about how they should feel about women. it's just that is like, that's scary.
The minute you get a Tate who says it's okay to have 15, 20, 30 girlfriends, you create a throwaway culture, which means that you have very little care or respect for that woman, right? And as a result, it'd be like having 30 cars. You can't like them all the same way. No. And then you don't
they become a commodity.
Then you can condone a woman that sleeps with 1,000 people because you don't respect her.
Yeah.
That's absolutely fine to go and be one of those men that do it, because why should we care about this thing? Because they're just throwaway. Yeah. They're interchangeable. They're just another commodity that is just on a conveyor belt. Yeah. It's a very fucking dangerous message. Yeah. And people just aren't talking about it. No. Yeah, they but they're not seeing the consequences, and this is a consequence of it. Men not respecting women.
Yeah.
Especially young men not respecting young women.
And the thing is as well, it's so short-sighted to not value, respect women, even just as a man, to not understand the effect that has. Is actually just like, that just blows my mind.
Well, talk about, so I just said this to you earlier in terms of like extrapolating this out. Once again, his biggest target market is like 13-year-olds to 18, 19-year-olds. These are our future generations that are going to be having families and running the country. I tell you when I realized it was a problem is I went to a family wedding and I got 2 nephews. And at the time they were about 9 years old. And they were just like they were cousins as well. They're not brothers. They don't even live in the same country. And all they were talking about at the wedding is top G this, top G that, and how many girlfriends I'm going to have when I'm older, and da 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 da. And I was just like, that is so scary. Like, to think that at this young age, that is a role model to them. And like, when you try and talk to them, it's like they were so like, he's top G, and if you don't think so, you're just not top G. And it's like, oh my God, you can't even enter a conversation about it because they've been so warped into thinking like he's just the man and everything he thinks.
I think with that mentality as well, we had a massive chat about this. Like, me and Al, we've had loads of arguments. Probably you and Sarah have as well. And I think I think though, with like today's world and what's been taught, I feel like it's very easy to be like, well, I don't want to be with you anymore. I want a divorce. I'm not going to work through this. I'll go and find someone better.
I could have 3.
And I wouldn't have my beautiful children if me and Elliot gave up on the first bad argument. Like, I just feel like my life wouldn't be as good as it is now if I thought I had other options apart from Elliot, if that makes sense. I just feel like that mentality of just it's give up mentality, I feel like.
Yeah. And also it's like when you don't the older I've got, the more I realise like what an incredible woman Sarah is and how much I value her. And realize like how, like even if I just looked at it from a complete selfish point of view of like how much she empowers me and how much stability she brings to my life, it's like for me to not value women and disrespect women and to think that they're just there just to like service us as men it just blows my mind, like how short-sighted that is. Like, so short-sighted. It's just mental.
The problem is it's really easy to point a picture at Tate for all this. Yeah. Once again, he's an extreme reaction to...
Just like the OnlyFans, right? If there wasn't the demand for it.
So he's an extreme reaction to the fact that there is lost kids looking for a role model because the people that watch it and criticise Tate never became the role model that they should have had. And as a result, he is someone that's managed to become an extreme variant given the market demands. And the problem is these kids are lost. And no one goes out there showing them a better way of playing the game. Another cool dad who's actually doing it, has all the cars, has a great wife, is doing a good life. And then, actually, I much prefer with this, and I resonate with this, he would then be a substitute to a better way. Yeah. And then kids could then follow something. But the trouble is, the kids are lost, and everyone likes to point fingers. What the fuck are you doing about it?
Yeah.
And that's why I am now trying to make a big stance and a big move. And that's why I'm going on socials, because I have an amazing wife. I have beautiful kids. I have a great life too. I have all the materialistic stuff. I have all the fun, but I also have the fulfillment of a great family and a much bigger respect for people, humans, and my country.
And the values. And
we need to get more people to stop pointing fingers and actually just start living a better life and showing by example, not just criticizing the entire time. It's so easy to point fingers from the ivory tower.
Yeah.
And it's easy to point fingers at Tate when actually it's everyone else's problem that he even got power in the first place.
Yeah.
People, once again, had young men gone, he's a fucking moron. My sons will.
Yeah.
they would never even followed him on social media. They would
Yeah.
never heard about him. He never got any virality. But it's not his fault. It's the blokes and other role models that are blaming him for being a bad influence that did nothing with their lives.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
But also, like, young men are craving male role models
Because there is none.
because there isn't. So when one comes along and he, you know, can talk the talk and walk the walk sort of thing, it's like they just lap it up. It's just unfortunate that he has to be so extreme. But had he not been, maybe
Some of the stuff he said is not. I don't feel it. Some of the stuff he says is.
No, he's
makes
not-
Sense.
that's the problem. Some of the stuff some of the stuff he says does make sense.
Well,
It's just like it's the other value system, which is just like,
Which is.
yeah.
the
I mean, what the thing
majority
is,
that's clinging on to.
ultimately, if I made you a cake and it was all good, but I put a little tiny bit of shit in it, you ain't gonna eat it. Do you know what I mean? It's ruined the whole cake.
I'll give you an extreme analogy of this, right? So I went and did a talk in a jail a couple of years ago, and I met a guy in there. He's a white guy, super intelligent. He was like one of the first people to invent like this crazy software for Google. He played piano, and we like had a good talk about business, and he created a community in the church there, and was like really big part of. I'm like, what did this kid do? Because everything I'm seeing is like a really good community supporter. He's like a nice guy. Something else. He's like, yeah, well, he murdered his dad in cold blood and stood there. I'm like, that might be 1% of his personality, but when you have that in you, it doesn't matter how good everything else is, right? If you're the extreme in there, it's like, I was like,
pretty rude.
to paint an extreme picture, right? Just because someone is 90% good doesn't mean the other 10% can make up for it, right? The bad part. It doesn't. You have to be acceptable across every percent.
Yeah, exactly. What did he do? Yeah, just murdered his dad.
Yeah,
all right.
Was caught standing there just like, yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah. That's,
You meet some interesting people in prison then.
You do meet some interesting people in prison.
Yeah.
Well, that's a conversation for another day, actually. I was going to stay away from that one. I'll get myself into trouble.
I thought you were going to say you just done a bit of tax fraud or something.
No, that's what I was hoping.
I can work with this guy. Oh,
yeah,
God.
that was a real eye-opener for me. And it paints an extreme analogy, but like someone that you think can be good from a big percentage of themselves might have a side of them that it's just, it's not stomachable. Like there's an element you just can't tolerate, and then which means that makes the whole thing break.
Yeah.
And we have influencers now and role models that have got to that point because society's allowed it.
Yeah.
And the trouble is, like, if I will give like a take home, is like, we have more responsibility than we like to take credit for, and we're all point fingers, but we're the ones that are culpable for this because we never made the change. We're sitting there and happy to talk about how bad the country's got. We're happy to talk about all the role models that are influencing men, influencing women. But what have you done about it?
Yeah.
How have you helped change
But that's
that?
the thing is like social media is just there for everyone. So it's there for the bad, it's there for the good. And it's like, you can either go on there and be a good role model, or you can be...
Or you can actually choose to be a role model.
Yeah.
So everyone has that tool.
Yeah.
They're sitting there criticizing all the other people trying to do it and not doing it themselves. I think out of everybody, the Bonnies, the Tates, whoever you want to Trumps, whoever you want to blame, the person sitting behind their phone, criticizing it and doing all about it is the main reason there's a problem. So don't you dare sit there and criticize if you've done nothing to try and at least change it.
Yeah.
No time for it.
Yeah. So very true. Very true. It's mad.
So really quickly, children, 5.
Yeah,
How does it get harder every time?
it gets easier.
Does it?
Did you two have a bit of a thing on camera?
She's paid me to
I was
say
going to
this.
say, how much does this cost?
Yeah.
Well, this is my logic, right? When you go from 0 to 1 child, that is a huge lifestyle
Especially
change.
for 19 years old.
Yeah.
That was mega.
When you go from 1 to 2, you just doubled the amount of your children. So that's a big upheaval. When you go from 2 to 3, you've just increased it by a smaller percent.
He's shaking his head. I can
When
see
you
it.
go from 3 to 4, do you see my logic here, right?
Yeah.
You're no longer doubling the amount of children, you're just adding
You're a bad influence.
a
You should
portion.
be banned
So
from social media.
it gets easier. It does get easier because you've already set up your lifestyle accommodates looking after children, right? So whether you add like another 1,
So did your life change a lot?
I was told. So I was told.
It's like, shut your mouth.
I was told the complete opposite to that. I was told
By who,
one
though?
is okay. 2 gets pretty difficult especially if they're close together. 3 changes the whole dynamic. Because I chatted to someone who was like, look, 1 was really difficult. It was like a big lifestyle change for me. We catered for that. 2 came along. It was okay. I still had an RS6. 3rd came along. We had to get a van because we couldn't put 3 kids in a nice car anymore. And I was like, that's the point at which I was like, well, if I can't have a nice car, and I saw what he meant, he went, 2's good. 2's good. He said, we got 3 and it was just a bit over the edge for me.
See, the good thing for you, Elliot, is you don't have to be limited like other people in this country by one vehicle purchase. You can have, for example, I don't know, you could have like a 2-seater Ferrari, and you could also have like a G-Wagon for the family car, but you could also have the Mercedes Vito, right? Yeah. So you didn't need to worry too much about limiting yourself to one particular vehicle.
Ask him how many times he's had 2 kids in his Ferrari or Lambo.
How many times?
Never.
What?
2 kids? You can't get 2 kids in there, can you?
Oh, what? As in together?
In 2 together.
Right. Sorry, I thought you meant as in have they ever been?
He goes to me, oh, I wanted the Mercedes, like a little 2-seater. I've always wanted one, and he keeps trying to get me one. I'm like, what am I going to do with it? He's like, it's your Sunday car. I was like, I have kids on a Sunday. Where am I putting them? One on the roof? And he's like, but I've got a Sunday car. I was like, yeah, because you don't take them out with you. So
See,
it doesn't make a
smart.
difference.
Yeah, I need to get myself a 2-seater, so I don't have to take it.
I'm telling you, mate, that's the one.
So I would say, from experience, keeping in mind I've got from the age of 19 all the way down to 3, and everything in between, including a child with special needs. Like, I honestly don't think that going from 2 to 3 or 3 to 4 is a big deal. I would say the only caveat to that is like having Maddie, who's our youngest. That's the only time where I've been like, okay, cool. Like we are definitely done but that's more because mine and Sarah's life has changed. Like we're very busy with like business and stuff like this. And as Casey's getting older, she's like, please stop having kids because the age gap is crazy. Do you know what I mean? So
making her feel old.
Yeah. Well, she's just like, this is bizarre. And I'm like, yeah, okay, maybe a little bit. But
how old was Sarah with the last one?
So 3 years ago, she would have been 35, 36.
Yeah, I suppose it gets to the point where if Casey has kids, her children will be closer in age than she is to her siblings. Yeah. Which, something gets a bit crazy, right?
So also, this is the other thing that I've realised, right? So Sarah was 18, I was 19 when we started having kids. I said to Sarah the other day, or in the last few weeks, I said, you do realise, like, we will never have a period of time without small kids, because as soon as Maddie is even, like in secondary school, like Casey and Grace will probably be having kids. So it's like, we're then going to be grandparents to small children. We are like most people would have a period of time where it's like, okay, we've had kids, they've grown up, they've moved out, they have a period of time, and then they're back to, okay, like we're helping with the small kids. I was like, we will never, ever have that. And I don't know how I feel about that, because like, I'm like, we're never going to have that period of time where we're like, oh, we've done it. Do you know what I mean? Like we've done it. They're all moved out, and now we can just chill, and we can like, I don't know, we could travel for like 3 months or whatever, because we're going to be like, well, we can't leave the grandkids, or like we got to help with the grandkids. So I'm like, I mean, it's
knowing you two, you probably don't want to leave the grandkids.
Well, this is the thing. I know that's how we're going to be with grandkids. So it's like, I know we're going to be like very, very involved. So I'm like, okay, we really have just signed ourselves up.
The scary part is you're already talking about it.
Well, Casey's 19. I'm not that I don't think she's going to have anytime soon.
I think you're probably scared. We
were 19 when we had Casey.
Yeah, I suppose that's a stereotypical.
And you got,
right?
I mean, like, even if Casey, I don't know, say she waited till she was 30, well, Maddie would only be 13, so yeah, we would have been doing school runs for, I don't even know how many years.
You need to get a nanny and a driver.
So I don't know how you did it for 15 years, to be honest with you.
I don't know how we done it. Do you know what it is? Like when you're like also because this is the thing, is like my friends are now, like I said, my friends have started having kids within like sort of last 5, 6, 7 years or whatever. And it's like, you can see how much they have to think about having a child, because it's going to be a huge disruption to their life. When we were 18, it was like, obviously it was like, whoa, like we didn't expect this, but it was kind of like, you're just so adaptable at a young age. You aren't set in your ways. Like you don't have like your whole life is like that. You're just kind of spontaneous. So after we have Casey, we were like, I don't know, like a year and a half, 2 years later, we're like, well, we've had one, let's have another one. It's like, we didn't even think about it. And then we had Sophie. It's like, it's only like when we got to like Maddie and Chloe and Maddie, our last two, where we're that much older in our lives, were like set in a certain way. We were like, you have to ask how disruptive is this going to be to your life. But when you're young, you just roll with the punches, don't you? You just like, and that's the thing, is that you don't overthink it. You just kind of go, figure it out. We'll work it out. And it does. It always does. And this is what I was trying to say to my friends. Like, it is scary. It will be a change, but like, you'll work it out. Like, you'll figure it out.
The thing is as well, like I was 30 when I had Morgan, so I was much older. But me and Elliot didn't really have a life anyway. Like we weren't really out drinking.
Speak for your fucking self.
You have
I had a life.
You have that life now. But I didn't feel like it really disrupted my life because I really wasn't into that. But obviously, if you took me back to university years, I feel like I would have really struggled having a kid like when I actually had friends.
I miss my real selfish years.
Yeah. Carefree.
He's actually got to run it by me if he has to go anywhere.
Oh man!
Like have a massage on a Saturday on his kid's birthday.
Is that I don't want to talk about it.
What's in the diary?
Oh, that's funny.